Okay, welcome everyone. I'm calling January 9th meeting to order.
What about the gavel?
Gavin's at the end, isn't it?
No.
No?
Oh, now the meeting started.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that on YouTube.
You're gonna pick on you. Did you watch any of mine?
I didn't go that far back.
I don't know if they go that far back.
I didn't know the gavel. I always thought the gavel was at the end after I read the.
Zach said, "There's no way I want to be chair."
I was hoping you'd be here tonight.
1 minute in and I already did something wrong.
I think you did great.
Zach just down
Item number 2, approval of December 12th, 2019 meetings. Does anyone have any changes or questions?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve with the new page that we got this evening.
I'll second it.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 3, chairperson's report. Oh, I wish this was you, Diane. But it is me. I want to say, Sarah, Rachel, you were there. I didn't get to really see you much on that Christmas event. My 3 grandkids had a blast.
Good.
They loved it. There was enough for them to do. It was good. Santa was good this year.
Good, yeah, I'm glad.
You know, Santa's always good for kids.
That's true. You know,
You know.
he usually does well.
But I told Sarah to be here so I can give her a little.
Yeah, he is.
Sarah took a few days off. I should have mentioned Rachel is the new Sarah for tonight.
No, that's fine. No, I had no. But Sarah, I was sitting down there in the thing with my wife and, hey Pat, I want to introduce you to somebody. Rich Desmond, who's running for supervisor of this area.
Oh.
He said, yeah, I was just in the neighborhood and Sarah said that you're the new chairperson. Oh, thanks, Sarah. So I was gonna, yeah, but no, like I said, the Christmas event, I mean, has always been a terrific thing. Yeah, I mean, she said you did a lot to it, so great job,
Thank you.
great job.
So can I ask you a question?
Sir.
The person you got introduced to, whose seat are they running for?
You know,
Because
he didn't
we
really
go over
say,
multiple
he really didn't say,
districts there.
you know, and I even looked at the card he gave me to see,
Okay,
and it did say, it just said running,
okay.
you know. So, you must know?
No, I don't. I was just curious whose seat.
Yeah, I was, out of the blue, I hear this tap on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
You're the face of this district now. Get used to it.
Yeah.
You are on YouTube.
All right, number 4 on it, any comments from fellow board members? Okay, go to number 5. We don't have any standing committees. We're going to address that later on the committees though. Right, yeah. We're on the second. So we'll pass that. Administrator report. Larry.
My turn, all right. First thing, Streesick Park Children's Playground. I won't go through the details of the report you have in front of you, but I mentioned to you several months ago that we had reviewed several of our parks and new playgrounds, in which we used developer impact fees to replace the children's playground. The second park, which was Streesick, we were waiting for the county and for SCI to review the use of the district's funds to determine if they were an appropriate use. We heard back from them and we got good news. Yay! The fact that we used it for that purpose and we had the grant resulted in what they call it was an eligible use of funds. So there's no change. The only change that we will have will be in the 2019-20 report, which will be submitted next. November, I believe. We will make a small language change in that report identifying, they want us to use a little bit more descriptive language of the use of those funds. So other than that, there's no fund change at all, everything stays the same. District signboard, we will, I will go ahead and address this now because there's another area in another report of the agenda which the board will take hopefully action on. As you remember, everybody knows the signboards, they're dying and may have actually died now officially. Scott did some research and received 2 proposals to replace the signboard. And Scott, I'm going to go ahead and let you describe the difference of the 2 a little bit more detail.
Before you start, can I just ask you said take action on? When are we taking action on?
You not, when later on, if you take action on the per capita grant project, we place this in there.
We're entering that, okay, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
clarify.
like I said,
Got it.
yeah, so not, now you want, not on this, but you'll see it later on.
Perfect, got it.
Well, as Larry mentioned, we did get two bids, 2 quotes for replacing the signboard. Both kind of revolve around using the existing framework that we have there. Really, it's just the signboard that would be changing. The range in prices well, Capital Neon has the lower quote here. They actually submitted a second quote that raised their price a little bit. And then Ellis, who years ago installed the original sign, put in a quote. Ellis, they went into a little more detail about improving the aesthetics of the base, the facade, and kind of dressing that up a little bit. We've asked them to submit a second quote that maybe takes some of that out. We're confident we can do a lot of that in-house, where we replace the broken brick facade and some other things. So I'm thinking that when we do get that revised bid, the prices are going to be fairly competitive with each other. So we're just, we're sitting on those. The signboard is definitely down and out, and we're still doing some research too on the software involved in operating the signboard, because in reviewing both quotes, it's a little ambiguous if that's included in the cost of the replacement of the signboard. So, but we do have 2 companies that are interested in replacing it, if that's the decision the board makes on it.
So a couple things with this particular this item. One is, and again, I won't anticipate how I think the board will vote, but just to put it out there for what it's worth, you're familiar with the small screen that's on the current signboard. I come both ways. I've heard, you guys have driven Watt so many times. You've seen it far more than I have, but over the last several years, made a point to kind of take a hard look at that sign. And depending upon where you are on Watt Avenue, if traffic's moving, it's hard to see it, because the sign kind of updates itself, so it's changing. So you may catch part of the end of one message, the beginning of the other, or just kind of blank space until the new message rolls up. I'm not sure how effective it is as a method of marketing our programs and district services and things we do. Does it help? Sure, it does. Is it our primary way of advertising program? No, you can't put enough information on it, and you're not staying still at the light long enough to get that. However, depending upon what the board would like to do tonight, and as I said, this report is really just to provide you with the information. If you decide that you would like to still see the signboard replaced and modernized, there's 2 options that we could go about having to pay for that. The first one is the one I would prefer not to do, and that is take funds out of our reserves to pay for that, because we have another opportunity through the per capita grant, Prop 68, and if I understand correctly, we actually got the original sign from a grant. So if we were to designate this as a project, like I said, this is something you're going to address later on in the agenda when we go to the per capita grant projects, which we have to approve. We could replace the sign at little or no cost to the district. We could face up to a 20% match. And as Scott mentioned, we're still not sure about whether, and I doubt it, that they, including the computer that we have to use to program the sign, it's probably not included in these estimates, so maybe $2,000 or $3,000 more, I'm not sure what a computer costs nowadays. But anyhow, I guess I want to point out that, just so we're all clear, that I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on marketing our programs, but, you know, I think it's a mistake to rely on one. I think it's good to have a lot of different ways of marketing your program. And that certainly is one way. It certainly catches people's attention as they're going down Watt Avenue. The other thing too is I want you to consider is if you decide you want to replace it, how do you want to pay for it? Do the grant, which may cost us just a portion of the match, or through reserves, which I would prefer not to because we have other greater needs for that kind of money. So anyway, we wanted to share with you, we told you we'd come back with some options for you. If you decided to go that you didn't want to replace and you wanted to use the grant, I had a phone conversation with the state on last Friday. I was reluctant to do what they asked me to do. They said, oh, we're way behind schedule, as you heard from me before about Prop 68 grants are way behind schedule. They have said we have authorized agencies to go ahead and spend the money now, and we'll reimburse you. I said, well, I'm going to be reluctant to tell my board that or recommend that to my board because you know what? You are way behind schedule, and I don't want to spend money and then have to sit there and chase the state down and get my money back. So I said, if we decided to use it for capita grant funds, we're supposed to receive a letter very soon giving us the official okay, and we'll address some issues of Prop 68 and the per capita grant later on. But it's possible that we could go ahead and replace this sign before the end of the fiscal year or start the process anyhow. We have 3 years to spend the grant funds once we've received them. The other option, if you decided to take it out of reserves, I would recommend that let's just wait until next fiscal year and include it as a new project. But like I said, that would not be my recommendation because that's money, it's gone, we can't use it for other things with the grant. This is kind of a nice, this might be a nice fit for something like that. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you.
Is this sign, is it the same basic structure as what you have there, or is it gonna be something that's lifted in the air a little bit, or?
They would use the existing framework, so it would basically
Same
be
basic framework?
just a modern version of what we have. Probably better, a little bit better clarity, but it's just, yeah, LED on both sides.
Would the screen size change at all?
No,
It would not change.
same size. Yeah, well, you actually, I'd have to pull the quote, a little bit bigger.
I thought the more expensive proposal was a little bit bigger, which probably is really important that, you know, because the bigger it is, the easier it is to read. But it would replace that, Pedro, it would take out the old sign, and essentially, and I have, just so you know, you already read it, I put in for the per capita grant the $50,000. So we have the option of going with the nicer sign if that's what you would like.
You mentioned in your report a little bit of a concern that possibly when people are driving, they're not seeing it. Obviously, you know, you're only driving by for a few seconds, but we shouldn't overlook the fact that there's a lot of foot traffic right here, especially coming from Freedom Park Apartments. I used to work right across the street, and people were walking by all day long. So if you're walking by, you're going to be able to read everything on there.
Like I said, Zach, we certainly see it as a component, a marketing component. It would be a stretch to say it's probably the most important thing that we do. Anything you do that you can reach out and touch 50,000 people is probably going to be far more effective than something, even though we have, literally I've read someplace that there's thousands of cars that pass by that every day, but you know, how many signboards and things are catching their attention as they're going down the road. But again, if the board opts to go with the use of the per capita grant funds for it, then we benefit by having a new sign and very little money coming out of our pocket again. All right, the next item was, I want to update you on the,
I have a couple.
oh, sorry, I apologize.
Questions. First of all, we didn't pay for that sign, just to clarify that. No
I said
grants. No grants, nothing.
Oh, nothing?
No, the county paid for that.
Oh, nice, even better.
County transportation paid for that sign,
Okay.
just to clarify. A couple questions. First of all, what about the wiring between the building and there? Does that have to be replaced, or is that still good, or?
They have not indicated that that would need to be replaced.
Okay.
Just an upgrade on the software
Okay.
and the computer.
So would the new sign, this is one color, is this going to be multicolored, do we
It
know?
would be red. It would continue.
It's the same thing, just red, okay. Did we ask for a quote for multicolored? Because most signs now are multicolored, and that's why.
Most have pretty amazing graphics, I think.
And that's why I was just asking if that was something we had asked.
We approached them looking for basically a replacement.
Okay.
Of the existing sign.
And the last question I had, you said we probably need a new computer. We don't need a special computer for this, do we? It just has to be a dedicated.
The one we have is a PC. The software is obviously woefully
Right.
outdated, but yeah, I would imagine it.
Okay.
It could,
We-
and
we
it
could
could
probably
be,
about
it could be
$1,000.
us rotating one out of our offices.
Yeah.
That was, somebody was getting an upgrade, because the one we have now looks like an old 286.
Yeah, no, it's, whoa, I remember. No,
It's pretty dated.
way back when, I actually helped figure out a few things on that sign when we first got it,
Okay.
so. Yes, I remember the computer, and I figured it was the same.
Well, as you note from when you read the report on the per capita grant, I put $50,000 in it. So as, you know, again, we don't even have to recommend a specific sign at this point. We're just
Right,
allocating
right.
a funding source.
Right.
And we certainly can look into it more about updating the graphics or colors to see what those costs are. Again, if it's not a huge amount,
No, that's
we
what I'm
may
saying.
fund that
That's
out of
just for
ourselves
the
if that's
difference.
what you want.
Because you're gonna catch people's eye a little bit more too, if it's just not the same.
Right. What would be nice is if we can find out from the vendor where, you know, whatever sign it is that they're proposing, if they have someplace where that sign has been installed, we can actually go do a field trip and take a look at
There
it
we go.
and see if it, you know, before we purchase it or we receive it, we can see what it actually looks like.
Yeah, that's it, that's all that I have.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Since this sign has been broken or turned off, have a lot of citizens asked about it? Or has it not really been in demand since it's been off?
Not that I'm aware of, I don't think I've heard from one person. And I don't know if Rachel's aware of this, the board is, that we have in the past, for a small fee, the public can come in and truthfully, it's not worth doing that anymore. It's too costly, and the minute you make a mistake on it, you're hearing about it and you're refunding somebody's money because you spelled Johnny wrong on the sign and it was for his birthday and they're all upset about it. But-
I always know when it's Terry's birthday though, so,
Do you?
yeah, it's on the sign.
Oh, good.
Don't you do that? Real quick, I had mentioned before in the miscellaneous report about the Cedar Creek CEQA analysis. I have heard back from the county, and the county has made a proposal to the district to do from A to Z on the CEQA report for Cedar Creek Park, $49,906, so a little bit less than $50,000. They've indicated that that number could be slightly lower than that because there's like 5 or 6 tasks that they're going to do as part of this project, and a couple of those tasks are time related, and they think that they budgeted at the high end, and so it could be less. And as a comparison, they shopped the proposal to a local firm, consulting firm by the name of AECLM. They're also a firm that does CEQA studies, and they made a bid proposal to the county to do the same report for $62,000. So the report's about 20% less if we go with the county, and that would be my recommendation. I'm going to have a conversation tomorrow with the county to find out what the process is, if we have to sign a contract, I'm sure we do, and what that will result in, but we're finally kickstarting this thing, getting it off the ground after trying to give the county all the documents they needed to be able to give us an informed proposal. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Another good item, a good part of this is, as you remember, as part of the contingency fund, we had put in $75,000 for a CEQA report. However, it is attached to your report as well, is an email from Blair Ross from SCI who said that any costs related to a development of a new park, and we're not talking playgrounds, so we're talking about a whole new park, we can use developer impact fees. So he recommended, don't spend your general fund money, spend the developer impact money. So we should have $75,000 left, until I come back and tell you something else that I want to spend it on. I should have about $75,000 that was going to be allocated for the sequel report that now can be used for other district purposes. Or if it's not used, as I explained to Pat the other day, at the end of the year, it rolls over to the carryover and it comes back to our budget into the next funding cycle. So that's good news. And the Sacramento County TOT grant application status, this goes back to last August when we made our application. That would be to upgrade this building and the community center with electronic opening doors, so seniors and those that are disabled can just push a button to get access to the building. The county board of supervisors had been scheduled to address this issue in mid-December, but they pushed it off to their January 14th meeting. So once I hear it, I'll go ahead and email, let you know. They're being very secretive. Normally they will tell us if you made the cuts along the way. This year, they're not saying anything to anybody, because maybe people were then going behind the contacting supervisors and saying, our project should have been funded, and of course, I was the one who did that too. Anyway, so as soon as I find out, I will let you know, and that concludes my report.
Any questions from there? Scott?
Just one item that I'll update for you. I appreciate your patience and your fact you're bundled up for tonight in the room, because it is a little bit on the brisk side, but we've been kind of mitigating the cold weather by keeping those doors open, let the hallway heat filter in, and we have our little R2 unit over there to pick up the slack a little bit. Next Tuesday is when the new HVAC unit goes in over this building. So by our next board meeting, it'll be nice and toasty, warm. They'll deliver it up this back access road with a large truck with a boom and a crane, and remove the old one and put the new one in place. So that'll take place next Tuesday. That's it. Unless you have any questions.
One quick question. Scott, you handed out the,
Yes. Oh, yeah, thank you.
yeah, on the top of, well, not on the top, about a third of the page down, way down on page 2, it says warrant amount 23,000.
That caught my eye too,
Okay.
because as you're aware, we get a percentage of any fines and
Yeah.
citations that El Camino generates from patrols in our parks. So they picked up a bad guy or a bad gal, and that person had a hefty warrant out against them. I'm not quite sure how that's going to play out. I was actually going to call our contact at El Camino and see what that all means.
Well, I saw Terry with dollar signs in her eyes, so that's why.
Something to spend it on traffic.
Okay, that works too.
I also noticed after our discussion about park security and after-hours parking at more than one location, I could see that the police activities picked up, and they're doing. I think they're probably doing a big focus on catching people that are in parks after hours.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Rachel.
Okay. So, as Pat had mentioned, we did have breakfast with Santa last month. It was a really good success for the breakfast portion. They made over $500. For the holiday portion, I had wished we had a bigger turnout. So it seemed that vendors were happy with the way the setup was, and we had 4 rotating crafts, plenty of staff, a station where you could write letters to Santa. We had Elsa and Anna come out. So everything went perfect, but our turnout was a little low. So I think really that is because I came in so late and there was little marketing done. So obviously that's going to be very different in the future. Marketing at least a month and a half to 2 months ahead of time on social media and flyers and things like that. The other thing was that Ridge Point Elementary School also had Breakfast with Santa that day, which, as you guys know, is where we have our after-school program, our food club. So we're also thinking that affected it a little bit. So again, I'm going to be looking in the future and making sure that I'm not hosting my event on the same day as someone nearby, because then we're competing with each other and it doesn't make any sense. The good news about that is that all of the leftover supplies we took to Raccoon Club, and they did a huge holiday party, and they used all the crafts, and so that was really good. The kids had a really fun last week, holiday themed event, and then the last day they threw a huge party. We had staff members dressed up as Grinch, so that turned out to be good because they got to use the supplies. And then also some things coming up next week is we have our Twin Rivers Unified School District volleyball starting on the 13th. And then dodgeball was supposed to happen next week, but unfortunately we had to cancel the first week due to some low enrollment. We're still running the program, but we're going to give it a couple more days for the enrollment to pick up. I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but from the past, they used to do paper waivers, and the coaches would sign them up on paper. But Sarah really wanted to get away from that and kind of, be up in the technology and have them sign up through our software system, ActiveNet. So we got over 200 people enrolled, but obviously it's going to take a while until we, get everyone used to, what we're going to be doing in the future. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yes.
So, if we're going online, I don't know how the waiver thing worked, and if we had some kind of a medical release, if anything happened with a child, we can take them. So if that's online, how do we?
So what parents do is when they enroll their child, they basically give their initial for the waiver and for the medical release. So now we have it tracked online instead of holding on to the.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So my question is, if we have to take a child to the emergency room, it's online, how do we get that?
So from my understanding, and truthfully I haven't seen it through yet because the program starts next week, and it's Sarah's, but from my understanding, the first day they're still gonna have some type of form that they're gonna fill out, and the referee is gonna be in charge of that. They're gonna have the roster,
Okay.
and basically we'll still have some paperwork, but we're not gonna have a million paperwork.
That's
So, yeah.
In the past, what we've done is we've made the hard copies available in a binder.
Right.
They're available maybe with the coach, I don't know if it's referee, but it's with the coach or with the gym
Right.
attendant. So
Someone's
they're
got it
there,
usually.
so if something happens, we have that right now, we can use that.
Right, go, okay, that was one of my questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
We had to, sorry.
Has there been any issues, I mean, we were here last year, with dodgeball, as an elementary teacher, like I'm not allowed to play that with my kids?
Oh,
So,
you throw it too hard.
no, I mean, even
Oh,
just
okay.
organizers, like I can't have my class play dodgeball.
Really?
Yeah, it's not allowed.
Bummer.
I've heard that since.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, if, I don't know, maybe in the future we pick a different game. I love dodgeball personally.
I don't know because I don't love dodgeball. I don't know how other people play, but what Sarah has is she has those small gator balls.
Yeah.
So they're foam. Is that what you normally would use in dodgeball?
No, it's
No.
not. These are more square balls.
So, yeah, so in this situation,
Right?
yeah, in this situation, what Sarah has purchased is they're pretty small. They're about this size and
Yeah.
they're foam gator balls.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any issues. Obviously, I am new, but Sarah had not mentioned any issues last year, and I think it just helps because it is smaller and foam.
Yeah, we used those when I was in high school.
Okay.
They're great. I was just curious, just because I'm like, well, hey, someone gets to play dodgeball.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. But,
Are you asking me to be signed up, or?
yeah, what's the age? What's the age? I teach fifth grade. Does that count?
Yes.
No other questions? F, fiscal report, that'd be Terry, right? So that's you?
Oh, that's Terry.
What's the fiscal report?
Fiscal.
That's just for your information.
That's just a summary of.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask, does the board find that valuable at all? Because it's really a replication of the information that you already have. I'm just pulling it kind of into one place. The downside of it is you get more information by looking at your your reports, the county provides us, than it is when I'm just pulling kind of some important numbers, but not the big picture.
Well, I mean,
Not the
so
full picture.
personally, I've looked at that, and a few times it's like, oh, well, so then I go back to the detail and look at the detail.
Okay,
So I mean, okay,
I just wasn't sure if you found the valuable one or not.
Okay.
So. you want the next one, right?
You just go 7, 8, 9.
Okay, correspondence, we don't have any correspondence. Number 8, comments, reports from any citizens, organizations. As my past chairperson said, you're more welcome to come. We'd love to hear from you. Number 9, we have no unfinished business. 10, under new business. A, proposition or proposed audit contract with Clifton Larson and Allen for the year ending June 30th, 2020 and 2021. How do you do?
Yeah, as the board may remember, at the last board meeting, there was some discussion, including from Alan, about an interest in the district continuing our relationship with CLA. CLA has just completed the 3rd year of their 3-year contract. The board authorized me to go back and negotiate with CLA to extend their contract. There's a copy of that in your board report. The numbers are great as far as I'm concerned. Their proposal would be for 2020 would be $11,850, and that would also include Cherry Blossom Park. And then the following year, 2021, it would go up to $12,200, and also include our Cherry Blossom Park as part of the audit process. And so if the board has any questions, we have the answer them. If not, at the end, if the board takes action tonight, then Pat would be required to sign the contract on behalf of the board, and then I will sign it as well.
It says board secretary, not board chair, but okay. On the bottom of your memo.
Oh, well, you know, that was my error, because usually it is the secretary, but when I looked at the contract itself,
It says
it says like representative.
board
or-
chair, okay.
So, yeah, Terry and I just talked about that tonight. It would be your option, whether Pat or you have Pedro sign it. As long as someone signs it,
Doesn't matter.
and I'll have to forge your signature.
Any questions, Alan?
Yeah, so just, because Larry did mention what it was, when it says under task district audit SCO report, that means the state controller's report, which is a separate report that you have to do for the state controller's office, and usually those cost anywhere, usually in the $500 range, which is now included in that. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the 2-year extension as noted in the staff report.
Second that motion.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
So one of us will sign it at the end, Pat. No problem, I got no
I
problem.
got through my first one. Okay. All right, 10B, California State Park Proposition 68 per capita grant that Larry's been fighting to talk about.
Oh, well, we're gonna make it quick, and you've already heard about 3/4 of my comments. As part of the per capita grant, which is the funds that we get automatically, all districts, cities, counties, government, parks and recreation agencies in the state, everybody's entitled to this. The minimum amount is $200,000. That is the amount that we would receive based on our population. Several things the board has already done in preparation for this. One, we had to complete a questionnaire, and that was submitted last May. It had a June deadline. We submitted it in early May. The board also recently approved a resolution, Resolution 582, which is a requirement telling the state that yes, we would like to have our free money. And the third thing is we now have to identify what projects that we would use the money on. And as part of that process, staff and I have talked over the last several months about, certainly we have no shortage of project needs in the district. There's a lot of things we need. But then we started looking at the facilities we have that we frequently use and what kind of condition that they're in. If you haven't had a chance to go over to the Cape Park gym recently, that's what we call a poured-in-place flooring. And it's cracking pretty bad now. Not enough that I think somebody would trip or anything like that, but it's served its useful purpose and it needs to be replaced. Ideally, a hardwood floor would be preferred over a poured-in-place. So we have, there's two projects we're proposing. The first one's called the Cape Park Gymnasium Improvement Project. It would include replacing the poured-in-place floor with a new oak hardwood floor. It also would replace, or it's not replace, but yeah, it would actually replace the two basketball backboards that serve for the full court, and would replace those with automatic retractable motorized, so someone that has to get up. I think Scott maybe told you, or Sarah did last time, how the old way we had to get up with a drill and actually put it on there and do it. Well, we replaced those side motors already, but we want to replace the two end ones. So that way you can actually use just a remote and they will lift up and collapse and they will come back down again. And then also, as part of that project, we'd like to replace the existing manually operated bleachers. I'm concerned about that because if physically someone has to pull those out, and then you've seen it, you push them back in again. This would also replace those bleachers with electronic. So they automatically would come out. At the end, when you're done, they automatically go back in. So we're modernizing that facility. We're getting away from everything having to be manually done to electronically done. That would be project number one. The second project would be the proposed signboard, which I mentioned to you earlier. Board can certainly say approve one or both, or if you have your own ideas, we can do that. But by the end of the month, we're supposed to have our project list ready. Just so you know, when I had my conversation with the state parks on last Friday, I'm trying not to publicly bash them anymore, because I'm not the only one doing it. When I asked, okay, even though we had submitted our questionnaire already, we have the resolution, we have the questionnaire, I can give them another copy, and also the project list. They've asked us to hold on to these things until we receive a letter from the state officially telling us we have the money and that we can then go ahead and begin our projects. And I said, so we're supposed to get this at the end of the month? And she says, well, we sure hope so. Just so you know, this was supposed to be something that 6 months ago we were supposed to get. So I don't know when we'll get it, but then she told me that, as I mentioned to you, that we could begin these projects. I said, if you send me a letter and you sign that and you tell me that from State Parks that we can, we'd be happy to do so. Because we have to front the money for these projects, and it's a reimbursable program, so they're not going to write us a check for $200,000 like they used to. Now we got to spend it and get the money back. I was describing programs that we're proposing, and they said this would be ideal, and there'd be no questions about these types of projects.
My only question is about the numbers. Did you raise your hand? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I mean, Pat, you gotta set the rules down here, you know?
Because we're looking at $50,000 is the approximate amount for the sign that we listed here, but in the earlier when we talked about the signboard, we said $24,500 to $42,800 plus a computer system. So if we are not hitting $50,000, what happens to that extra money? Because we might as well make sure we get all of the money.
Well, keep
And
in
I
mind,
asked for color.
That's true. That's true.
if we had any expense that was greater than this, that would come out of our pocket. The reason we're not giving you hard numbers on these is because we have up to 3 years to complete the project. So if you know anything about bids, they're usually only good for 30 days. So if for some reason we wanted to hold off till next year to do the project, those numbers could change. Likewise, we've only received 2 bids. We don't have to take either one of these bids. When we're ready to go, we could have done more research and come back to you and said, hey, we found actually a better deal at a better price. So we're putting in just a block number of 50,000. And again, we have the ability to, if we want to contribute to that, to get something nicer, we certainly can. Likewise with the bleachers and the hardwood floor, I think that number is probably within about 20% of being accurate. Who knows, once they start demoing up there, what they'll discover underneath that floor, I don't know. But there's a lot of flexibility with this grant.
Okay.
And so they just want to see what we're not proposing a project that they would have, that doesn't meet their criteria of following these certain categories. And then here we spent the money, now they're telling us they won't reimburse us. So anyway, so they're asking for the type of projects and an approximate budget.
Okay.
So this, it's not set in stone, it's just, I'm just telling you what the estimated cost might be.
If both projects came in, let's say $20,000 under that, so $180,000 is what we spent, is there a way to then still use that remaining $20,000?
My understanding is, the answer is yes.
Okay.
We still have our 200,000. The thing I want to be careful of is I don't come in with projects that are 400,000.
Yeah.
And then they approve those, and then they say, well, we're not going to reimburse you till you finish the projects, which means we have to dig in our pockets and pull more money out.
Yeah.
So I hate to say it, as much as you would think this is a pretty sophisticated process, it isn't. Scott went to the meeting several weeks ago where, because we weren't the only district, a lot of districts were hearing different things, and we were not hearing from the state, nothing being definitive. Even when they were falling way behind their schedules, they were not coming to us and telling us what was going on. We had to call them, and then everybody was getting different answers because I don't think anybody knows. And I'm glad that Scott was able to attend that meeting because we learned a lot. But in our follow-up, there's two contacts. And I actually talked to both last Friday, and at least they're telling me the same story. But they said you're definitely, you're entitled to that money. The way we had it set up is you have to submit your project, so we want to make sure you're not doing a project that would not be approved.
Okay.
So. Any other?
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve staff's 2 recommendations for the Prop 68 funding.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. All right, now we'll go under new business, BB.
I know.
BB. Resolution 584, 2019-2020 mid-year budget transfer request.
I think Terry just wanted to see if you're paying attention.
I like that.
Yes, that's what we did. Yeah, that's what we did.
Now, I know someone on the board knows, and I was brought to his attention.
So, just briefly, I'll go through those. Just as a reminder to the board, mid-year budget requests are generally projects that either we were unaware of at the time when the board passed the original budget last June, or they are things that have come up that were unanticipated. And in this case here, and I'll just briefly touch on these, we realized that we needed additional money for medical supplies to get us through the rest of the year in the recreation division. And as you are probably aware, that there's been some state mandates about training employees, including sexual harassment trainings, which, by the way, all our employees have been trained by the deadline of January 1st. We're all up to speed on that. And so we're requesting a total of $3,000 for the recreation division. Maintenance, you received my previous email about the HVAC unit, which is right above our head. It died, we could not repair it anymore, it has to be replaced. And that's an approximate $20,000 item. We need to do that. There's also a request, as I mentioned before, there was 4 basketball lift motors. So north of 2 that I described to you earlier, those are the ones on the side. These are the ones on the end. And we decided to address that up front. And also we had our first Capri insurance claim, in which we have a $2,000 deductible. And that was for the basketball backstop at Brock Park. That will be replaced with a brand new backstop. Approximate cost $12,000.
Yes.
Okay. And we gotta pay our insurance deductible on that. And so the three combined, including for the administrative division and park maintenance and recreation was $36,520. As I mentioned previously, we have $125,000 in the contingency fund. If you authorize the use of those funds, that would leave us a balance of $88,480. I mentioned to you earlier that I was going to come back to you and talk about how we might want to spend some of that money. Two things. As I want to just make it clear, if we did nothing and we had $88,000 remaining in this account at the end of the fiscal year, it just goes into our carryover, and it just comes back into our budget effective July 1st. But it is there for the purpose of using it for things that are unanticipated. Because we also have 3 or 4 other HVAC units on this building and the community center that are the same age as the one we're replacing, I'd like to come back to the board next month with a request to use some of those funds to replace additional HVAC units before they fail. Now, the one I believe that we're replacing next week, we recently put a $2,000 compressor in that, and it failed, but we're able to save the compressor and use it as a spare part in case we ever lose another compressor for that a similar unit. We have that part, and we can, and in fact, I think the HVAC unit folks are going to take it out for us, is that correct? So we'd like to address that up front rather than wait till June and July and the air conditioner goes out and we got the buildings rented and we got a problem. So you have to take no action on that $88,000 that's remaining in the contingency fund tonight. We'll come back to you in February with a request, likely not to use it all, but to look at replacing several other additional units, and then probably in the next fiscal year replacing the remaining balance. So the request is, and there's a resolution before you, to do a transfer from the contingency fund to some expenditure accounts in the amount of $36,520.
Any further discussion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution 584 in the total amount of $36,520 for contingency fund transfer.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
You'll need to sign that tonight
I got signed a lot of stuff.
as well. They used to.
And sometimes everybody's got to get that down to county now.
I know, my connections just disappeared.
Next is appointment of board committees for the 2020 calendar. I have to say, I was looking at this, since I can't be on here anymore, I'm the neutral person. So I'm making a little proposal. Since we have new blood coming into our committee now. But what I was looking is like my proposal to you guys that I'm asking is on the personnel policies. I was going to leave that the same with Pedro and Alan. The budget, finance, and audit, I was going to put Alan and Pedro on it. Besides football, they can talk money. Then with the program fees and charges, I had Zach and Diane. And then the facility development, I had Zach and Diane for that.
So who's the chair of which committees?
Okay, I'm sorry. The chairperson for personal policy is Pedro. And Alan, I put you in charge of the budget and financing, the wizard. And then Diane, I had you for program fees and charges. And then I left Zach for facility development.
Got it.
So if anybody has,
Did you get all that?
I got it.
Okay.
if not, I got it down.
Okay.
So, everyone good with that? Not good?
You're good. It's your call.
Okay, well, we're a
Thank you.
team. We're board of directors. All right, number 11, payment of the bills.
Do we vote on that, or is it?
Oh,
No,
no, that was,
no, it's just you.
Yes, you did, perfect.
okay. Payment of the bills. I'm the boss now, I ain't saying
Yes,
nothing.
Al.
Alan,
So, this has probably been here forever, but I probably just haven't noticed it. Under employee insurance, California Choice, what's that?
It's basically, it's a group that we do get different insurance with it. We have Kaiser and Western.
Okay, so it's the medical part
We have
of it.
medical insurance.
Like a
Okay.
broker.
So what's co-power?
Co-powers are dental, vision, and.
Gotcha, okay. That was it. Thank you.
That was easy.
Easy.
Was the Christmas tree from Home Depot real or
It was real.
it was a real tree?
Oh, yes.
Okay, one thing we may consider in the future then is buying a fake one so we can use it. But yeah, I
We had bought Christmas trees
mean,
and they died. They literally, we had about 4 or 5 of them. They were,
You talking about fake ones?
yeah, fake
Oh.
ones before Larry got here.
I was gonna say, we did have fake ones a long time.
Oh, we had ones that usually just popped up. And-
Right.
We had one in this room here in the corner that we had for the lunch, and it was pretty sad looking.
Yeah, some of them are.
Well, it's just, we finally bought a fake tree this year for the first time in a long time. The lights, I've got 3 different sets of lights that I can flip a button, it flashes, stays solid, you know, yeah. Trust me, I'm old school too. I like live trees, but yeah.
I'm laughing at that only because this is a, I call it a discussion. It might be more of an argument that my wife and I have every single Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
She wants a fake tree, and I cannot get myself to go down and buy a fake tree. And while she's still thinking about it, I just go down and buy a real tree.
Yeah.
Delays the conversation for another year.
would it be possible then to buy a living tree that we can plant somewhere?
Well, we actually thought about that a few years ago. If you remember, with the space that we have in front of our building, the problem is we have a lot of utilities.
Yeah.
Because there's a huge drain there, we have a lot of utilities that run in that area, because that would be ideal. Because we thought we could light that
Yeah.
every year, and then we don't have to buy a tree, that's our tree. We certainly could, we just maybe have to find a location for it. But we actually had planned on doing that, but the location wasn't going to work, and so we delayed it, and then kind of, it went off the radar for a while, but I do agree with you. If we could find one that we could plant, that we could, like a nice blue spruce or something.
Yes. I'll make a motion to go ahead and ratify payment of the bills.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjournment. The next regular meeting of the Board of Directors will be on February 13, 2020 at 6:30 PM in the North Highlands Recreation Center, 6040 Watt Avenue.